Rotary wing aircraft share a history as extensive and diverse as fixed-wing aircraft. The initial serious endeavor towards constructing a rotor-lifted flying machine is found among Leonardo da Vinci's notes and designs. The first success with flying rotorcraft was the Breguet brothers' gyroplane No. 1 quadcopter, which remained airborne for nearly a minute in the fall of 1907, and Spain's Juan de la Cierva is credited with inventing the autogyro in 1923. Despite their visual resemblance, helicopters and autogyros operate on different principles. Helicopters generate lift and thrust through a powered rotor, whereas autogyros function more like gliders, utilizing pushing or pulling engines to spin an unpowered rotor and attain lift through forward momentum. However, there exists a third category of rotary wing aircraft that amalgamates elements from both helicopter and autogyro designs, a commercial-sized craft with capability to vertically land and take off from small urban helipads. The manufacturer of this innovative design was confident that their creation would revolutionize air travel, and it nearly did. Nevertheless, the groundbreaking prototype of the fairy Rotodyne never achieved commercial success. So, what led to its demise? Well, founded in 1915 by skilled aircraft engineer Charles Richard Fairey, Fairey Aviation had its origins in an intriguing twist of fate. Initially, Fairey's aspirations to join the Royal Navy Air Service were thwarted, as the High Command foresaw greater value in his potential as an aircraft designer, considering the perilous nature of Air Force service during the ongoing conflict. Fatality rates among British pilots were especially high during World War I. To appease the 26-year-old aspiring fighter race, the Admiralty granted Fairey a subcontracting job focused on designing and constructing seaplanes. This marked the humble beginnings of a company that would steadily flourish for the next 3 decades. As the years unfolded, Fairey Aviation evolved into a prominent entity, crafting notable models of aircraft well into the 1950s. Their portfolio included iconic creations such as the Swordfish torpedo bomber, Firefly fighter, and the Gannet search and striker bomber, all of which garnered recognition in naval aviation. Despite the enduring fame of these planes, Fairey's most innovative creation remains in relative obscurity. In the 1940s, inspired by Igor Sikorsky's successful single-rotor helicopter designs, Fairey Aviation embarked on a private venture to develop groundbreaking aircraft. This envisioned design aimed to seamlessly integrate the speed of an airplane, the efficiency of an autogyro, and the maneuverability of a helicopter. The inaugural prototype, named the Gyrodyne, represented Fairey Aviation's first foray into helicopter design. Departing from the still conventional tail rotor configuration, the Gyrodyne featured a unique setup, with a single pull rotor mounted on the side of the craft beneath the main rotor on a stub wing. This distinctive configuration basically classified the Gyrodyne as a compound helicopter. Just before we continue with today's video, I wanted to tell you that this video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs from beginners to seasoned pros. No matter how busy you are, Squarespace makes it easy to create a stunning website, connect with your audience, and even sell your products or services, all under your control. Now let me share some Squarespace features that I absolutely love. First of all, this Fluid Engine. It's a bit of a magic wand for website design. Look, I'm no tech whiz, but with Squarespace's drag and drop magic, I turned a basic idea into a polished site. Unleash your creativity without breaking a sweat. Next, the Squarespace extensions. They connect your website to third-party tools, which means your website's functionality is essentially limitless. No more, I wish my site could do that, because Squarespace makes it happen. And yes, Squarespace also now have courses. Create and sell an online course, got a professional layout, custom videos, easy to edit thanks to Fluid Engine, and it all looks amazing. And here's the best part. You can set the price, one-time fees or subscription. Share your knowledge and make it work for you with Squarespace courses. When you're ready to create your online presence, go to squarespace.com/megaprojects for a free trial. And when you're ready to go big, use the promo code MEGAPROJECTS to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or a domain. Your journey starts here, everybody. So check out Squarespace. Thanks to them for sponsoring. And now back to today's video. To spearhead this innovative project, Dr. J.A.J. Bennett, renowned for his extensive rotorcraft expertise gained at the Cierva and Weir aircraft companies, was recruited. The aircraft's controls differed from a typical helicopter, as they integrated throttle and pitch into a single control lever. In horizontal flight, the pilot could manipulate yaw using foot pedals. Powering the craft was an Alvis Leonard's 9-cylinder radial engine, delivering 520 horsepower to the main triple-bladed rotor, measuring an impressive 15.62 meters, or 51 and a bit feet. Notably, this engine stood out for its size, surpassing other helicopters built in Britain during that era. A case in point was the smaller Dragonfly helicopter by Westland, featuring a rotor spanning 14.63 meters or 48 feet. While the Dragonfly had the ability to carry nearly 500 kilograms or 1,000 pounds more than the Gyrodyne, Fairey's creation prioritized enhanced speed and stability over weight capacity. This would cause several civilian air transport companies to take notice. So, these design theories underwent real-world testing just 6 months after the Gyrodyne's inaugural flight in 1947. Piloted by Chief Helicopter Test Pilot Basil Arkle, the Gyrodyne achieved a remarkable world speed record for helicopters, averaging 200 km per hour or 124 miles per hour on a two-way course near White Waltham Airfield in Berkshire. Buoyed by these accomplishments, plans were underway for a jet-powered iteration of the Gyrodyne. Despite the general success and record-breaking speed, the construction of a second propeller-driven Gyrodyne was indefinitely postponed following a tragic rotor head failure in 1949. The engine and rotor broke apart mid-flight, resulting in the loss of a test pilot and an observer. Since the end of World War II, Fairey developed a keen interest, bordering on an obsession with tip jet propulsion. This fascination was sparked off by demonstrations of the Doppelhoff WNF 342, originally designed as a lightweight reconnaissance vessel for the Nazis. Following the war, an American-captured variant of these unique helicopters was exhibited in Indiana and showed promising potential after testing. Impressed by the technology, Fairey enlisted several surviving members of the Doppelhoff team to contribute to jet research and application within his company's endeavors. The evolution of the Gyrodyne entered its second generation with significant refinements. While retaining the craft's main engine and overall shape, Fairey introduced two stub-wing props in a pusher configuration. The rotary engine was linked to tip jets positioned at each end of the dual-bladed rotor, powered by two Rolls-Royce Merlin compressors. Yaw control was enhanced by two fins on the stub wings, complemented by propeller pitch. This innovative design resulted in an ultralight compound helicopter known as the Jet Gyrodyne. Its tip jets burned kerosene and extinguished upon achieving auto-rotation in forward flight, enabling it to function like an auto-gyral in horizontal flight. The Jet Gyrodyne took its inaugural flight in 1954 as part of a Crown-appointed program evaluating the feasibility of jet-driven helicopters. While the Jet Gyrodyne didn't make a strong impression on the government's observers, it provided valuable insights to Fairey Aviation's future rotorcraft projects. Transitioning from helicopter to autogyro proved simple, but the reverse was often challenging, leading to unsafe drops in elevation or forced landings. Unlike traditional autogyros, which could execute low-speed landings easily, the flight dynamics of the Jet Gyrodyne were far more intricate. Subsequent efforts between 1955 and 1956 saw over 190 transitions between forward flight and jet-powered VTOL, confirming that the innovative Gyrodyne could operate well within intended parameters and safety margins. Britain's delayed adoption of helicopters into its military had deadly repercussions during the Korean War, notably the Battle of Imjin River in 1951, an engagement considered to be the bloodiest endured by the British Army since World War II. Under-equipped and facing overwhelming Chinese forces, the Gloucestershire Regiment was gradually worn down until the remaining 459 soldiers surrendered. This battle underscored the value of helicopters in military operations. The nimble aircraft could have facilitated resupply and evacuation from the challenging terrain, a capability that proved advantageous for other UN forces employing helicopters and experienced fewer casualties. 2 years after the Battle of Imjin River, the UKM Ministry of Supply approached Fairey, seeking the design and construction of an ultralight helicopter for military observation. Fairey's response was a tip-jet-driven helicopter weighing nearly 817 kilos, or about 1,800 pounds when fully fueled and equipped. Propulsion relied solely on tip jets, positioned at the ends of 28-foot or 6.6 diameter blades, with a Turbomac Pellucid gas turbine engine providing 250 horsepower of directional thrust and power for the tip jet compressors. The Fairey ultralight helicopter would fly for the first time in 1955, showcasing remarkable maneuverability. Its versatility allowed for easy takeoff and landing on the bed of a standard flatbed truck. Subsequent sea demonstrations affirmed the ultralight's flexibility and suitability for naval usage. However, despite its proven capabilities, the UK military, driven by the demand for larger rotorcraft, withdrew support for the project. Undeterred by the loss of government backing, Fairey pressed on with the hope of selling the final product to the US military. This international interest, though, never materialized, and the ultralight project officially came to an end in 1959. After the end of World War II, the British aircraft industry eagerly shifted its focus to civilian and transportation needs. Just a few decades after the establishment of the first civilian airfields, a rising demand emerged for commuter planes and helicopters. Challenges in air travel, still relevant today, including the time-consuming aspects of commuter flight service, transport to the airport, check-in procedures, and waiting for the aircraft to land, receive service, and be granted runway access, which would often surpass the duration of shorter flights. With this in mind, and observing his competitors closely, Fairey made the strategic decision to venture into the civilian market with a large transport helicopter. The seasoned aircraft engineer believed that incorporating vertical takeoff would provide a distinct advantage over fixed-wing aircraft, particularly for shorter journeys. Building on the successes of the Gyrodyne and Ultralight, Fairey recognized the potential of tip-jet-driven blades for vertical landings. This innovative feature allowed the Rotodyne to operate efficiently within city centers, eliminating the need for runways and other space-consuming infrastructure. While clever engineering couldn't expedite check-in times, Fairey Aviation aimed to significantly reduce wait times for liftoff and the need to commute to airports outside city centers. Surveying the northeastern US and much of Europe, Fairey identified a viable market for such vehicles, particularly for city centers. Although these unique aircraft boasted a theoretical cruising speed of approximately 150 miles per hour, or about 240 kilometers per hour, which was quite a bit slower than the Douglas DC series, for example, the Rotodyne offered quicker takeoff and didn't encounter delays for runway clearance, setting it apart from traditional airplanes. In 1947, the Fairey Aviation Company put forth a proposal for a compound helicopter capable of accommodating 20 passengers and powered by two Rolls-Royce Dart engines. The envisioned design featured a four-bladed, jet-tipped main rotor and two three-blade driving motors on stub wings in a puller position. Initially intriguing British European Airways, the project evolved as their demands increased over time. The airline eventually sought a 40-passenger craft with a cruising speed of 240 kilometers or 145 miles per hour. By 1953, the Rotodyne had undergone significant design modifications. It could now carry 40 passengers at theoretical cruising speeds of 265 kilometers or 165 miles per hour, capturing the interest of airlines for intercity travel in Europe. A prototype using a five-bladed design with two Dart engines for forward propulsion and two air-compressing jets for the rotor's tip jets was constructed in 1952. However, the design accepted by British European Airways in 1953 opted for a four-blade configuration incorporating two larger Napier-Eland engines for both forward flight and tip jet air compression. Internally known as the Type Y, Fairey's Rotodyne secured approximately £780,000 in funding from both BEA and the UK military. Construction of the final design commenced in 1957, featuring an impressive 90-foot circumference rotor providing lift and steering. The transition from vertical takeoff to forward flight occurred when a heliliner reached a speed of about 95 kilometers an hour, that's 60 miles per hour. Controls, similar to the Gyrodynes, utilized a stick and pedals, amalgamating elements of both helicopter and airplane controls into its design. Various mission profiles were considered in the construction of the Rotodyne. Civilian applications had an emphasis on luxury. Operating at relatively low altitudes eliminated the need for pressurizing the heliliner's 18-meter fuselage, that's 59 feet, enabling the placement of wide windows along every row of seats. The Rotodyne offered generous headroom at 6 foot or 1.83 meters, surpassing the standards of airliners of that era. Entry into the cabin was facilitated by a spacious four-step air stair, positioned only 4 feet above the ground, far lower than the average airliner, eliminating the need for expensive rolling staircases. An additional feature, not universally available at the time but present in the Rotodyne, was air conditioning. Its AC was capable of handling outdoor temperatures ranging from -10 to 35 degrees Celsius or 14 to 95 Fahrenheit. Similar in design to contemporary planes, the Rotodyne housed fuel tanks in its stub wings with a capacity of 726 gallons or 3,300 liters. At the top, a unique pyramid-shaped assembly supported the rotor, allowing the complex compressor system powering the tip jets to intake air while maintaining aerodynamic efficiency and dampening vibration. The Rotodyne significantly deviated from typical helicopter designs in its lack of a gearbox. Each 2,800 horsepower Napier-Eland turboprop fed directly into auxiliary air compressors mounted at each prop's rear, supplying the tip jets on each blade through unique ductwork in the pylon assembly beneath the rotor head. Referred to as the trouser leg by designers and engineers due to its shape, this assembly featured two round ducts feeding the four tip jets through the center of each blade. The ductwork served as a scaffold for fuel and electrical lines igniting the tip jets during takeoff and landing. The design of the trouser leg allowed a single engine to facilitate takeoff or landing, although less efficiently. In a departure from previous Fairey rotorcraft designs, the Rotodyne incorporated retractable landing gear to enhance cruising speeds by greatly minimizing drag. This innovative feature included a unique provision. In the event of hydraulic failure, the crew could manually access landing gear locks, allowing gravity to extend and lock the wheels in the landing position. Additionally, various safety mechanisms ensured that the landing gear couldn't retract while the craft was on the ground. This forward-thinking approach was remarkable, considering it would take decades before notable hydraulic failures on passenger planes prompted significant safety changes within the industry. A standout feature of the Rotodyne was its tip jets. These were pressure jets, akin to those used on the ultralight designed by Fairey, and they demonstrated exceptional suitability for their purpose, experiencing minimal pressure loss due to friction. Any loss was compensated for by the centrifugal force generated by the free-spinning rotor. These small yet robust jets could withstand forces as high as 350 Gs and core temperatures reaching 1800 Celsius. Notably, Fairey's tip jets lacked moving parts, as feeding compressed air into the jets eliminated the need for an intricate series of blades, as seen in typical jet engines today. This significantly reduced the cost and skills needed to maintain the Rotodyne's jets. Now, the maiden flight occurred in early November 1957. Extensive tests have been conducted on the unique tip jet rotor and main engines at various stages of construction. Although other Fairey rotorcraft were still undergoing active testing at White Waltham, witnessing the substantial helicopter lift off under its own power was a significant milestone. Initial tests involved simple maneuvers, launching the Rotodyne and hovering or flying a short circuit before landing. As testing progressed, transition tests became the focus. By the spring of 1958, 302 vertical takeoff and landing transitions had been successfully completed without incident. In the early stages of testing, pilots kept the tip jets engaged, and over the initial 70 flights, this proved to significantly enhance the Rotodyne's speed. Early tests recorded speeds of just over 240 kph or 149 miles per hour. With the mastery of transition and flight techniques, test pilots began pushing the boundaries of the Rotodyne's flight envelope. On January 5, 1959, the Rotodyne achieved a remarkable speed of 309 km an hour or 992 miles per hour during a flight test, establishing a world speed record for helicopters. This accomplishment was particularly noteworthy considering that BA's initial requirement was for a craft with a maximum speed of 240 kph or 149 miles per hour. In June 1959, the Rotodyne embarked on its first transnational flight, covering the route from London to Orly-Vert Heliport in Brussels and then Issy Heliport in Paris. While serving as proof-of-concept flights, the journey also had an ulterior motive. Coinciding with the 23rd Aeronautical Salon at Le Bourget, it presented an ideal opportunity to showcase the rotorcraft's groundbreaking systems and VTOL capabilities. Completing this three-stop journey in just 58 minutes at cruising speeds of 289 km an hour or 180 miles per hour, the Rotodyne demonstrated outstanding speed and efficiency, cutting conventional helicopter travel times in half. Comparing this flight time with airplanes is challenging due to the unpredictable nature of ground time at each airport, but we can say with certainty it would be much longer. Alongside the flight speed record set on January 5th, this inaugural transition flight stood as Rotodyne's crowning achievement. The allure of what essentially amounted to a luxury flying bus service made it irresistible to heliports and airline companies alike in both Europe and America. Throughout its testing phase, the Rotodyne completed 454 flights, accumulating over 154 hours of flight time. While testing often focused on exploring potential for military applications for this unique helicopter, various exercises allowed engineers to evaluate its suitability for passenger and freight service. A notable demonstration of its civilian potential involved transporting a prefabricated bridge 8 kilometers or 5 miles and accurately placing it across a river. The successful positioning of the bridge highlighted the Rotodyne's versatility. Further testing showcased its capacity to carry underslung loads of up to 3,600 kilograms or 8,000 pounds without strain. In September 1959, the Rotodyne took centre stage at the Society of British Aircraft Constructors in Farnborough. For this occasion, the fuselage was refitted and fully furnished to airline standards. Among its various demonstrations was the transportation of 30 nurses on a short voyage. Sound measurements taken at Battersea Heliport that same year revealed that the Rotodyne's tip jets produced an ear-damaging 113 decibels at 180 meters during takeoff and landing. While the BA expressed concerns about public acceptance of the noise, test pilot David Gibbons shared a different perspective in interviews with the BBC, considering the sound levels actually as a feature. Quote, "It was quite a fun place to work because it made so much damn noise, they kept you miles away from anybody." Fairey Aviation dedicated significant effort to mitigate jet noise, successfully reducing the volume to 96 decibels by incorporating tip jet silencers. Fairey asserted that the Rotodyne's noise, lasting only during takeoff and landing, would be overshadowed by average city sounds, presenting a valid counterargument. It's worth noting that modern airports routinely subject neighborhoods to 96 decibels each time an airplane lands and takes off, with noise complaints decreasing over the past decade. Perhaps there would have been similar acceptance of the Rotodyne's noisy engines. The Rotodyne, during VTOL, would expose buildings near city heliports to noise equivalents to 2 large trucks passing on the street for just a minute or so each visit. Despite noise reduction efforts and the overall efficiency and success of the Rotodyne, concerns about noise and challenges in procuring additional engines impeded further testing progress. By 1960, the British aircraft industry was poised to embrace the Rotodyne for city-to-city air transit. The Heliliner's speed record, heavy load capabilities, and VTOL capability were all significant advantages compared to planes and conventional helicopters, but paramount among them was its safety in emergency situations. As mentioned earlier, the landing gear could be locked in the downward position in the event of a failure in the power or hydraulic systems. Additionally, as the Rotodyne's main rotor was in auto-rotation during forward flight, flying it like an auto-gyro facilitated easy and slow run-on landings, serving as a built-in safety feature and enabling landings at any airport. However, challenges in the aircraft industry posed obstacles for the further development of the Fairey Rotodyne. As the 1950s progressed, funding for Rotodyne development remained constrained, exacerbated by Fairey Aviation securing fewer defense contracts. The broader financial challenges for the company were compounded by shifts in the UK's industrial landscape. In 1946, Prime Minister Clement Attlee initiated a path to nationalise industries, impacting the aircraft sector by 1960. Initially boasting over 20 aircraft manufacturers, the UK saw a rapid consolidation, reducing the number to 3 by 1961. Westland absorbed Fairey Aviation, emerging as the sole UK manufacturer of helicopters, while Rolls-Royce took control of Napier, signalling the discontinuation of the Ellen line of aircraft engines. The Rotodyne's design was intricately linked to the Ellen engines, and attempts to adapt to alternative engines proved to be slow and costly. Challenges escalated when Tyne engines intended to replace Rotodyne's Ellens became unavailable within the production timeframe specified in the BEA contract. Westland continued to sustain the Rotodyne project, securing an additional £4 million from the government to facilitate ongoing development. British European Airways pledged to order 6 other aircraft if all specified requirements, particularly noise reduction, were met. However, as uncertainties surrounded the project, backers began withdrawing support. The Royal Air Force opted for the HS-780 Andover as their medium transport aircraft, further diminishing support. Subsequently, orders from New York Airways, Japan Airlines, and Okanagan Helicopters in Texas were cancelled. Facing dwindling support, Westland proposed to BEA that they could acquire the rights to the design as a private venture. They wouldn't take them up on this offer, and official funding ceased entirely in February of 1962. In a statement to the House of Commons, Minister of Aviation Peter Thornycroft remarked, "The government have been reconsidering the future of the project against the general economic background and the need to restrict government expenditure. They have decided that, so far as the military version is concerned, it is necessary to forego the operational advantages offered by this aircraft in view of the cost involved." He continued to express that, following careful consideration, Westland reluctantly initiated steps to terminate the Rotodyne's development contract. And with that, it was no more. Due to the numerous government contracts for other models like the Wessex, Scout, Wasp, and Whirlwind, Westland had no funds or personnel to spare for an experimental civilian aircraft. Moreover, the company culture did not support unsupported private ventures. As a cost-cutting measure, the Rotodyne prototype, being government property, was dismantled and scrapped. Components like the rotor head and pylon assembly, a sliver of the fuselage with window and seat, a couple of tip jets, and a single L-end engine found their way to the College of Aeronautics in Cranfield. Eventually, these remnants found their final resting place as the Helicopter Museum in Weston-super-Mare. Unfortunately, much of the design drawings, schematics, reports, and technical data related to the Rotodyne were lost in the bureaucratic aftermath of the forced merger between Fairey and Westland, although some remnants exist in the possession of private collectors. This act of technological vandalism and neglect remains unattributed to a specific individual, yet it is deplorable that such an innovative prototype and its design data were lost due to short-sighted, profit-driven accounting. The world needed, and still needs, the capability for a vertical takeoff airliner. In a sense, the dream of the Rotodyne persists in the contemporary pursuit of air taxis. While companies like Uber explore individual self-contained craft, they still lack the power-to-weight ratio that made the Rotodyne compelling for city-to-city transit. There also exist a number of experimental Gyrodyne-type military aircraft, including the X-49A Speedhawk and the Eurocopter X-3. Until recently, Skyworks Global was developing an exceptionally unique gyroliner intended to fulfill the same niche as the Rotodyne over 60 years ago. The concept design bears a striking resemblance, albeit without the boxy shape and helicopter cockpit, appearing more like a private jet with a helicopter rotor on top. While this project seems to have stalled, it is encouraging to witness innovations inspired by the Rotodyne re-emerging as humanity adapts to the challenges posed by climate change and the shift from fossil fuels.